Hey, welcome back to another PowerApps Hacks video. And this time I've decided to do 5 hacks for using sliders. Now, this was provoked by the many slider creative situations that I have noticed lately. People are just doing a really fun things with sliders. And so I thought I'd point out some opportunities that you have for those of you that might be new to sliders, just to kind of spark your curiosity and see if you can come up with something even more interesting. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the date hack. Now in this case, I'm using these sliders in order to indicate how many days ago I want to show in my gallery here. So this is connected to a SharePoint list, and these are a whole bunch of items going back as far as September, and they've been modified recently, right? So we have some that have not been modified in a really long time, and this is the ones that have been modified in the last 30 days. But as I bring this slider down to the other side, you see that I can say, all right, I only want to see the ones that were modified in the last 6 days. Now, I probably should have shown you the modified date in the gallery. It didn't hit me until just now, but trust me, these were modified less than 6 days ago, and the others were not. And so we're going to look at the formula so you can get an idea of how I did this. This is kind of an interesting way to filter down a gallery if the interest is about modification or the recreation date or the contract date or whatever dates you might be using. If you know that your users will be interested in the last 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and in some cases even more dates, you might give them a slider opportunity to set that up. It takes less time than picking dates in a date picker, and it takes less time than typing dates. So let's kind of look at what I did. So what I did was I set up a slider, and I maxed it out at 30 days, right? So I figured like nobody wants to see more than 30 days, and I just made that up, okay? But in your world, you might need more, right? I'm going to set the minimum to 1 day, right? And then I am going to show the value at the top so that they can see as they're dragging what that number is. So this show value property is what gets that number 11 of showing up. Now, if you notice when I was dragging that, the handle got a little bit broken, and that's because the handle is basically doesn't have enough space. So notice that you have a handle size property, and I can lower this to like 35. Let's see how that works. Okay, that works better. You see how I have less breaking up? The other thing I could do is give the handle a little bit more space, increasing the width of the handle. So here, let's bring this handle down. You see this space in here is important for how it breaks up, right? And it gets a little bit bigger when you move it. So that's why you have to have some space. So I thought I'd show you that as well. Now, how dramatically this changes the gallery will totally depend on the data. In my case, these items have been edited like 3 times, so there's not a lot of variance. So I like this when there's quite a bit of activity on the list where it's almost modified every day, right? And I added this little days ago so that you'd understand what that means, right? To kind of how many days ago do you want to see, right? And of course, I could spell that out in more clarity in some other way, but I just chose to do that for this video. Let's look at how the slider's set up other than that. So I didn't really do a lot with this slider. I think that's about it. One thing you could do that I like to do sometimes is play with the hover fill, the handle fill. And you have a hover fill, and you have a handle fill, which is basically the color of what's in here right now. So if I match this to my header, right? So I have a header for the page. If I use that fill in there, right? Now it's purple. But if you notice, it's not purple as I drag it. It's still white. So you can change what it is when you drag on it using the handle hover fill, right? And so maybe let's just make this black, for instance, right? And you're right, when I hover over it, it's black. That's a hover fill. So you have quite a few fill options with the slider. And I tell you the truth, I really only use handle fill. But you've got handle active fill, handle hover fill, And then you have equivalents for the border as well. So you got a lot of options as to what that thing looks like. And what I'm going to show you, what I'm going to give you a link to in the description is Mehdi found a way to actually cover up the circle altogether and create your own handle. He's phenomenal. I'm going to put a link to his blog in the description because I was going to do a video about that, but he described it so well, I decided to just give you the link to the blog, and you'll let us know if you have questions. Just put them at the bottom of the blog. All right? But if you want to use the out-of-the-box handle, which is what I used in all of these hacks today, then those are some key properties that you'll want to remember. Okay? So that's the date slider. Oh, most important thing is the formula for the gallery. So let me show you how this gallery filters down. So if I go to the items property, you'll see that I have it sorted by columns because I want it to be descending from the most recent date the last item was added on. So that's that outside. But then what I did was I took this part out and put it in a OneNote right here so you can kind of see it up close, bigger. So this filter, which is sitting in the middle of the sort by columns, just to kind of start by filtering the data before you sort, is saying take all the change orders and then get the date difference, right? So here, this is a formula that I love, date diff, right? So date diff is a function that takes two dates, a start date and an end date, and then gives you the difference. Now, if I get in here, I just want to click inside date diff for a minute, you'll notice that after you type those two start in parameters, you can also hit a comma and choose what the difference is. Years, quarters, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. See how it's written up here? But if you type nothing, it'll be days. So I could change it to hours, right? Which would make these pretty large numbers. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it to the default, which is days, and I don't have to type anything for days. You do notice I get the blue underscore because this is one of those filters that is non-delegatable, right? So you'd have to make sure that your list is under the number of items that's listed in your app settings, under advanced settings, and up here. Your list would have to be less than this value and can go up to 2,000. Okay? All right, so let's go back. Actually, what the filter is doing, and we just look at that one more time, is first it gets the date diff, and then it says if the date diff of those items are less than or equal to slider 1's value, then that's what it's going to show. So based on the difference between the modified and today, it's going to go and filter that list for all of them where the difference is less than or equal to slider 1 value. And that's why when I move the handle, you'll see less items if I'm going to the left, more items if I'm going to the right. And really easy to use. All right. And I'd love to see your ideas on all the different ways you could use this date slider. Like you could set the little ball to be a month or a quarter to filter down to the current quarter or to filter down to future quarters. And so it's like really interesting. You could think of contract dates, not only entry dates and modified dates, but contract dates, project end dates, project start dates, all those kind of dates. You can filter them with a simple slider. All right, next, let's go to the next hack. So we're talking about the pie date slider. Okay, so pie data slider. This is an interesting one. So what I decided to do is to use the actual sample data that we give you when you insert a pie. So this was like my way of making sure that everybody had the same data for this particular example. And all I did was insert that pie and take out the title. And then I took off the title. That's the only thing I changed, right? I took it off in the title. Now, what I did was I took that, and I'm going to explain to you how I got the data out of that, because the pie data sample, or the sample pie data that we give you automatically, you can't edit that. It's in the back end in some technical, exciting cloud space world, and you can't get to that data to edit it. So I put it in a collection so that we could see it and edit it. right? So this is my collection that is a copy of the pie chart sample that we give you. And then if you select a city here, let's select Mexico City right now looks to be the smallest. Moscow looks to be the second biggest. So let's go to Moscow. And then what I'm going to do with Moscow, I could have made my graphic. Let's make my table bigger so you can see them all. Sometimes I just move too quickly. All right. So now you can see Moscow is selected, and I have here select the city, then drag the slider to change the area value. So I'm changing the area value from being 25 to whatever my slider ends up being, right? So I start dragging, and this is important that I start dragging because this is going to happen on change of my slider. So I'm going to let go. So Moscow's really big now. Let's make it smaller. Let's make it like 8. Notice that it got really small. Now, yes, these titles will truncate, and it's just part of the sizing of the pie, which I'm not going to worry about now. I just wanted you to see that. Let's see if we can make Moscow big again. And then you can see now, you can see. So it kind of, the labels are being sized based on how much space you have for your pie. So if I made my pie space a lot bigger, then I wouldn't have the missing labels or the truncated labels that you sometimes get. But I wanted to point that out too, and that's why I'm going ahead and show you that in the pie chart. So this is kind of cool. I'm actually editing the data, the series, by using the slider. All right, so let's see how I did that. So first, how did I get the sample pie chart into this slide? So I put something in my on-visible property of the slider. And so let's go look at that, and you can see that I just put a simple clear collect. That way, every time I come to this slide, it resets. Right? And I did that for the demo. In real life, you might not want to clear collect. It's up to you. But I clear every time you come into this screen, and I make a brand new collection, or I replace the collection my call pie with whatever data is in pie chart sample. And so this is my way of pulling that data out of the sample data and putting it into a place that I can edit it. Then on the on change of my slider, I'm actually patching to that collection whatever's selected in the data table. So this part of the patch is which record. So I'm going to choose the record from whatever's selected in the data table. And then what am I going to patch? I'm going to patch to the area field. I'm going to patch the value of slider 3. Okay. Now, why did I choose area? Well, it's because of the way we set up this pie. So I'm going to put this, I don't really have to do this, but I can do it. Let's do it. Let's change this back to pie chart sample, which is what happens when you insert a pie chart. And by the way, those of you that don't know, that is available here. Okay, when you insert, the default series for this is pie chart sample. And if you look at the advanced properties for the pie chart, you'll see that the labels are the city field, and the series is the area field. So just to make life easy for myself, I decided to keep editing the same exact series. And so I just changed it to my call pie, which I created on screen load, so that now I can actually put an on change event here that patches to my call pie. You will not be able to patch to our sample data because you don't have any access to that. But just think about this. This doesn't have to have anything to do with our sample data. This could be patching to your SQL data or patching to your SharePoint list. Wherever the data is for your chart, this is an easy way to change those series along the way. So Mexico City, it's this light gray. Let's change the area from 11 to 15. Now, another thing you might want to do, and you'll see that that changed, and it changed in here too. I would kind of leave it at one default value, and then when I change it here, you can see that it'll change in the area, and it'll change in the chart. So kind of an interesting way to change data in a chart, and I just thought I'd try something different, okay? And also show you how to get data out of our sample data and how to play around with charts, okay? Next, I'm going to talk about the rating slider, right? So this is something that a long time ago we had an app that did a survey, And I don't know if it was a template app or our app, but I found this app as a result of some work that Pratap did, and I really liked the way they were using the slider to pick their rating. So on the left side will be the thing you're rating, and then there's a long list of these sliders so that for each question or each statement, you could state whether you agree or disagree using the slider, which was really easy to use from a phone device. And I said, oh, I like this. It's very finger friendly. To me, this slider is much friendlier than, say, a drop down. Even though drop downs are fairly friendly if you keep them big, but some fingers have hard time getting into that drop down, but they don't have as much trouble with a nice chunky slider control. So I like this for phone apps. But what I thought was really cool about this is this slider is just basically going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then underneath them are these words, right? So let's look at up close how I did this. First of all, again, this is just a regular slider. The max is 5. The min is 1. Now I noticed that you might notice that I changed the handle fill. I made it the same as the page fill. This way, if I decided to change the theme, it would change the handle automatically as well, right? So that's all I kind of did with my slider, and I made the minimum is 1, the maximum is 5. Now, how am I managing these labels down here? They are just 5 labels, by the way. So let me just copy one, Control C. So what I'll do sometime is I'll copy one, and I'm going to show you the formula for the bold, but I'm just going to Control C and then Control V 4 times. So now I have all the ones I need. Then I'm going to bring them down here and select this one by Control click and go to my home screen and align them top, which makes them all the same alignment, and then pull one over to the right. And now I'm going to highlight them all again, and I think I'll take this one all the way over here. And then I'll highlight all these again, and I don't know if you knew you had to distribute. In your align, you have distribute horizontal. You also have distribute vertically, but they're very helpful when you're aligning things. And so that's a good way to kind of copy and paste your labels, and then you can type in them, right? So I'm going to put this as disagree. Now, I don't want disagree to be bold. Where did that story come from? Well, what I'm going to do is go to the font weight here, and notice it says if slider agree options value equals 1, bold, otherwise normal. So since we're on the second one, I'm going to change that to 2, and notice how disagree is no longer bold, right? And then I can change this one to say neutral, and then go back to the font weight again. So I kind of do it on the first one first so that all I have to do is edit the others, right? I don't have to worry about doing the formula on each one. This is kind of like my shortcuts I'm showing you. And then font weight on this one is 4. And then I can go here and make this, that's actually right. No, this is supposed to be agree. And then my font weight, if slider 1 value equals 5, bold, otherwise not bold, and those will just work. See that? Easy peasy, guys, easy peasy. Now, understand that that same formula that we're using to bold these words can also be used for other reasons, right? If slider 1 value equals 1, update context variable to be strongly disagree. If slider option value equals 1, patch to data source strongly agree. You see what I mean? So you can if then your way through patch statements and variables and anything you want to do just by them just dragging their finger across these different things, and you've got it all configured to do all the magic behind the scenes. Okay? Super easy, right? I love it. I love it. Okay, let's do the next one. This is a music slider. So it's kind of funny that I call it a music slider. I think I should call it a menu slider because basically what I do have is I have a list of videos in my data source and there's 5 in there. So basically my slider is similar to the others. It's got a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 5. And basically as they slide as they use their finger to slide this, and since I'm on a touch screen, I really can drag with my finger, which makes it look better. You see that's my finger dragging. You can kind of see my finger shadow, but that works better than the mouse. I mean, that's how friendly it is for mobile devices, and that's why I love sliders, for that finger, right? Once they pick the video they want, they can hit play. Woo! Sorry, I got distracted. Sometimes music is the thing that really rocks my world. Sorry. So I can take this and slide to the next video once I get tired of listening to that. And I can play that next video, right? And you can decide whether you want to leave your controls. I have used a video control here. So thank you, Ariana, for sharing your music with us today. So that's how easy you can use it as a menu. So how did I do that? Well, I have a data source that's basically controlling the media of my video control. So the data source is using a lookup here. And what the lookup is returning based on the slider value is a slider, I guess. So it's looking for the number of the video. So there's a number field in my data. And in that number field, it's looking for the number that matches the slider. And then that's the URL it's going to return back to the video so that it knows what's to play, right? Now, I did that same lookup, a little bit different up here, to get the name of the video, right? So there's a column called name in that same data source. And I have it looking up the number where it matches the slider. Okay, and if you want to see that, I'm just going to import, I'm just going to put a button in here, and on select of this button, I'm going to collect the data for the video, which is table 1. It's it's an embedded Excel file. And let's just call this my videos lookup. I just wanted to show you the data. And then we'll run that so you can see the data in the collections. Okay, so there they are. You can see there's a num field for each of the videos, and this is what I'm using for my lookup. So if you were on SharePoint, you would use the ID, which would give you a unique number for each video, and then you can say when the ID equals my slider value. In this case, since I'm using Excel, I matched it to the number column. And then it picked up the name and the URL in those 2 lookups. So the lookup here is getting the name of the video, and the lookup here is getting the URL for the media property. And that's all that is. I mean, it's just like an interesting way to give your users a different experience. So kind of a fun thing to do, just to change up how you give your users experiences, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. This is the last one. This is number 5. Kind of makes me sad. This is just to show you that you can do a vertical slider, but I have a little trick in here. If they select the right number, they win. So it's like bingo, right? So I'm going to slide up, and you can see that as I slide, I have my show value showing on the left, but I also have it in a label over here to show you how to pull the value into a label, right? But then if I choose number 75, bingo, it says bingo here. So it still, by the way, it still says 75 there, but it says bingo over here. So let's look at the text value of the bingo first. So in the text value of this, I say if the slider value is 75 then I want the text to be bingo. Otherwise, I want the text to be slider for value, right? Now, I could also use this in my true statement. I could say bingo and the actual value, right? Maybe I'd say bingo, you picked 75, you know? And so you can put a lot of if statements in these scenarios to kind of do different things based on what they have clicked on in the slider, right? The other thing I did was change the color. So if you notice, I'm holding down the Alt key to run this without being in preview. You notice that the color is purple when it's not 75. And again, I just did that in the color property. I said if the slider value is 75, make it red. Otherwise, make it the same color as the header page fill. And there are the 5 slider hacks. Check out the link to Mehdi's blog in the description. He does some amazing things with sliders to make the handle look different. So I hope you enjoyed these hacks on how to use sliders. And I want you to try and think about ways you might use sliders, especially in your mobile apps. Because I'm telling you, that finger action is just so satisfying over trying to select from drop downs or perhaps trying to select from other things. So I really like the way it feels on your finger, you know, when you're on a mobile device, especially. I just happen to be on a touch desktop. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Again, this was just a sneak it in there before Ignite video. I hope to see you soon and happy power apping, guys.